Ichigo is the strongest Soul Reaper in all of Bleach, but to become the strongest in Bleach, you not only have to have skill, but also a strong bloodline. And while Ichigo, he's everything. Human, Hollow, Quincy, Reaper, even Fullbringer. All of that combined gave our boy immense power that could rival ancient beings such as Yawak, who claims Ichigo is one of his own children because all Quincy's are intrinsically linked back to their king as a sort of pseudo-child. This family history of Ichigo's is so special that Ichibei, the strongest and oldest Shinigami to exist, planned to make him the next Soul King. But Ichigo's story starts with two people who are relatively normal, his sisters Yuzu and Karin. Whilst Karin became more involved with the spiritual side of Bleach due to having some dormant high Ryatsu, she never actually becomes a Soul Reaper or even attempts to, mainly because Ichigo wouldn't let her. Yuzu on the other hand has basically no Ryatsu at all, as over time each of Kurosaki's kids would gain less and less spiritual pressure, which is why Ichigo, the oldest, is basically God incarnate and Yuzu, the youngest, is just a normal girl. In the beginning, Ichigo lived in relative peace with his two siblings and his dentist dad Isshin, who ran a local clinic in Karakura town. But unknown to Ichigo or his sisters, his parents weren't at all what they seemed to be, because Isshin Kurosaki's true name is actually Isshin Shiba, which is one of the most important names in all of Bleach, as the Shiba clan are part of the 5 noble clans of the Soul Society, which predates the 3 realms. Yup, that's right, Ichigo's bloodline existed before the current world order itself. We've already made a video on that whole lore, so I won't go too deep into it, but all you need to know is that these guys are super influential figures in the world of Bleach, but by the time of the main story, they're just doing their own thing, setting off fireworks. The Shiba clan was shunned because 2 of the most influential members, both part of the Gote 13, met their end. One was Rukia's mentor and Ichigo's cousin Kaien Shiba, who looks exactly like him. He was a victim of Aizen's holification experiments and Rukia was forced to kill him. As for Isshin, he was actually the Squad 10 captain, but everything changed when they found Ichigo's mom Masaki, who was actually a Quincy. You see, these two met when they both went to face off against Aizen's experimental Hollow White, where Masaki ended up getting holified. Now, unlike Shinigamis who were turned into Vizards upon being infected by a Hollow, Quincy's just straight up die, as a Hollow is their natural counterpart. So in order to save his new Pookie, Isshin had to give up his Soul Reaper powers in order to essentially become Misaki's shield against the Hollow consuming her, and so he became a normal human until the Arrancar arc when his powers suddenly returned. Now Masaki is also broken AF, as she's one of the last living true-blooded Quincy's in the human world, through being related to the Ishida family, which therefore makes Ichigo and Uryu cousins. Isshin's departure from the Soul Society and Kaien's death led to the Shiba clan being outcast. That's why when Ichigo meets them in the Soul Society arc, they're exiled from the main part of the Serieti. It's also here where we get introduced to Kukaku and Ganju, who are both related to Isshin in some way, making them also Ichigo's family. With his connection to one of the OG noble families, if Ichigo was born in the Soul Society, he practically would have been royalty. But what's even more insane is the fact that the Hollow Isshin gave up his powers for actually transferred to Masaki's first child. Now, let's be clear here. White was far from your average Hollow. He was created by Aizen to purposefully be stronger than normal Hollows and corrupt Shinigami, also being made up of several Shinigami souls. Essentially, Aizen was using White as a way to make more Vizards like Shinji. Kisuke Urahara even warned Ichigo's parents that it would be passed down to her firstborn child. But I guess Misaki didn't give a fuck because she still got down with Isshin and popped out 3 kids. And so Ichigo just had this Hollow chilling inside of him, but not in the way anyone expected it to. You see, Ichigo's inner Hollow isn't just some sort of evil spirit hoping to gain control of him. No. The Hollow is actually Ichigo's guardian angel and is in fact his true Zanpakuto. What? What the fuck? You see, when White's hollow essence merged with Ichigo's soul, the inner hollow ended up taking the form of a Zanpakuto spirit. Old man Zangetsu even states that every time Ichigo was on the verge of death, it wasn't him who saved our MC, but the hollow. Take the battle against Byakuya at the Soul Society, or Ichigo's Vasto Lorde transformation when fighting Ulquihira. They were both moments where Ichigo was on the verge of death, and so the hollow stepped in to protect its master. Okay, so now that we know Ichigo technically has 3 parents, Isshin, a Soul Reaper, Masaki, a Quincy, and White, a hollow, what if I told you it only gets more complicated? Ichigo actually had a 4th parent who is directly tied back to the Soul King. Yeah, of course, I'm talking about Yuaba. Like we said earlier, all Quincy's contain the blood of their king. It's what gives him the ability to use Blut and other Quincy attacks. It didn't matter whether you were a full-blooded or half-blooded Quincy. If you could summon blue bows of Reishi, you had a little bit of Yuaba inside of you. Consequently, this also means any Quincy was susceptible to the Orswowlen or the ritual performed by the Quincy King to return the powers he granted to his people back to him. This is what led to both Ichigo and Ishida's mum's deaths. This idea of every Quincy being linked back to Yuaba is why when Ichigo first meets Zangetsu, he actually encounters Yuaba, or more accurately, a vestige of the Quincy King. Just as White had become Ichigo's Zanpakuto and therefore the source of his Shinigami powers, which he got from his dad, this Yuaba vestige was a representation of the Quincy powers Ichigo inherited from his mum. So you might be wondering why this dude told Ichigo he was Zangetsu. Well, it's actually for 2 reasons. Originally, he didn't try to hide anything. In fact, if you go back to Old Man Zangetsu's introduction, he straight up tells Ichigo his true name, but it's blacked out by ink. This is actually insane foreshadowing on Kubo's part, as this was a hint to Ichibei all the way back during the Soul Society arc. This man straight up blacked out Yuaba's name so that Ichigo couldn't see it. Secondly, since this vestige was a Quincy, it naturally despised the Shinigami. Yuaba's whole motivation stems from the fact that his father, Adeneus, aka the Soul King, had the ability of the Almighty just like him. And despite foreseeing the creation of a world where life and death were separate, where his son's own people would be brutally massacred, the Soul King still went along with everything and became this mutilated cornerstone of the world. And who were the people who brutally murdered the people Yuaba held so dear? The Shinigami. More specifically, the original Gotei 13. So when Ichigo, the person this vestige of Yuaba cares about the most, started wielding this giant ass Zanpakuto, he said hell nah. He wasn't letting his precious Ichigo become a disgusting Soul Reaper. And so, using all his might, Old Man Zangetsu was able to seal away a majority of Ichigo's Shinigami powers, whilst also masking himself as his Zanpakuto spirit. Because if Ichigo ever became a true Shinigami, he would, have to kill him. So for basically the entire series, Ichigo was using like 1/100th of his full power until Zangetsu finally accepts Ichigo for who he was and unseals his actual power, leading to the creation of his dual Zanpakutos. But once again, this links Ichigo back to the true Yuaba, who even calls our goat his son in the dark, which is basically him calling Ichigo an idiot for not understanding his true purpose as a Quincy. But hold on, because I am just rambling way too much here, so let's get back to the main point I am actually trying to make. Ichigo is related to his mother, Masaki, who was a true-blooded Quincy until White fused with her. This means that the Kurosaki bloodline was a family of Quincy's prior to Misaki's death when Isshin took on the name. With that established, it means that all of Ichigo's ancestors, at least on his mum's side, are true-blooded Quincy's, meaning they are linked a lot closer to Yuaba than most. Now, there are a lot of Quincy's, so it's unlikely that Ichigo is a direct descendant of Yuaba. Like, this man didn't get all naughty with Ichigo's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma now, did he? However, this does mean that Ichigo is in fact related to Yuaba in some way, shape or form, as Old Man Zangetsu is visually proof that this dude has Quincy blood, only brought to his forefront after escaping Kilge's jail when the stern Ritter's spiritual pressure merged with Ichigo's own, awakening his latent abilities. This comes from Yuaba directly, by the way, and I would trust the progenitor of an entire race with knowledge about his own species. So when we look at Ichigo's family tree, our goat is linked back to 2 insane bloodlines, both of which go back millions of years to before the conception of Bleach world as we know it. You have his father's side, which links back to the Shiba ancestor who was one of the elders responsible for Adeneus' sealing, and then his mum's side, which goes back to Yuaba directly due to a pure-blooded Quincy heritage. But what makes things even crazier is that Ichigo is probably now, in some way, shape or form, a direct descendant of of the Soul King. Before the 1000-Year Blood War anime, it was kind of unclear what the father-son relationship between Adonais and Yuaba was, but with the new flashbacks we got in Core 3, it gives us a much better idea of their relationship. In the anime, we see what is most likely the OG world of Bleach, as we see the Soul King creating the 3 worlds by forming 3 circular water ripples in a large body of water. Partially inside that body of water is Yuaba. In fact, we even see a young Yuaba crying, most likely due to witnessing the sealing of his father. We also see an adult Yuaba de-age back into a baby, leading us to believe that the Quincy King was actually around in the primordial world and was actually reincarnated into the new one as a shadowy baby who couldn't move or talk and over time slowly gained strength to become Yuaba. This means that there's probably a direct blood tie in between Yuaba and the Soul King, which therefore connects Ichigo back to the most powerful being in all of existence. So not only is this man part Soul Reaper, part Quincy, part Hollow, part Fullbringer, and part human, he's also a descendant from 2 of the strongest lineages in the multiverse, one of which ties back to God himself. Like, seriously, you can't make this shit up. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of this video, Ichigo's bloodline is confusing and for a very good reason. And so now this absolute unit of an entity is going to Bleach's most mysterious world, Hell, alongside his son Kazui, who is most likely even more insane than his daddy. But if you want to learn more about Bleach's newest story arc and what to expect in the future, check out the video on your screen right now.